Toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. That was the coaching my mother gave me as I tottered along the living room floor in my first pair of heels. My mom was a debutante and had had much training in how to walk properly in heels, along with a lot of other etiquette training. Let's just say our dinner table was impeccable and chewing with your mouth open was a federal offense. After learning to don heels in a way that didn't resemble a giraffe on roller skates, I purchased a ton of heels. Who doesn't love how good their butt and their calves look in a pair of heels? So chic, so fashionable, but so painful. Anything for fashion, as they say. Well, that same debutante who trained me to walk on my tiptoes now has a lot of feet issues. And it makes me wonder if the shoes she wore in the 70s and the 80s caused a lot of these foot issues, or are they just genetic? We also lived on the beach, so flip-flops were worn a lot too. I've heard those are the worst things ever for your feet. Not to mention other common ailments that I've heard my friends complain about, like plantar fasciitis. Do shoes cause us more harm than good? I got a lot of questions about feet and shoes, so let's get into it. All right, today I have Dr. Corey Thompson with me. He is a orthopedic surgeon, and you specialize in feet and ankles.
Correct, yes.
Which is great because we're talking feet today. And we have a plethora of shoes. If you follow us on YouTube, which you should, you can see all the shoes we have in front of us, and we'll get there. But right now, I want to talk about, I want to ask you some questions about common feet ailments.
Sure.
Because this is a personal issue for me. Plantar fasciitis, super common. Just tell us about it.
Yeah, plantar fasciitis, very common. It seems like pretty much everybody gets it at some point in their life.
That's actually good to know. Misery loves company.
That's right. The problem with plantar fasciitis is once you've had it, you're more likely to get it again at some point.
Oh, no.
The average person can take 9 months to a year for it to really go away.
Yep.
If you have a job or do things where you're on your feet all the time, it can be very difficult for it to go away.
And what is it exactly?
Basically, the plantar fascia is a ligament on the bottom of your foot that helps support your arch. And you kind of get some tearing or inflammation of that ligament, which leads to pain on the bottom of your heel.
I one time heard that the fascia and itis, from what I've learned over the years, means inflammation, right?
That's correct.
So if you have sinusitis, your sinuses are inflamed and that kind of thing. So your fascia is inflamed. And I heard someone describe it to me as if I was to melt away all your bones and all your muscles, the fascia that remains would look like a spider web of your body.
Yeah, that's correct. That's a good way to put it.
And it kind of, does it just hold the muscle to the bone kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of holds bone to bone almost. I mean, it does give muscle structure, yes. It kind of, contains the muscle and it gives everything structure, basically.
And so why does it take so long for the itis to unitis to relax?
It's hard to say. I think there's multiple reasons for it. One is that it's in your foot, right? So it's far from the heart where the blood flow isn't as good.
Oh, so would more blood flow to it make it heal faster?
It would help it to heal faster.
Look at that. Didn't know that. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, how can we prevent it?
It's difficult to prevent. A lot of times it happens for no apparent reason at all. It's rarely like an injury or anything of that nature. But
Great.
Right, yeah. It'd be nice if you could identify something.
Yes.
But I mean, certainly one thing would be supportive shoes. Like you see all these shoes here, supportive shoes, especially if you're on your feet a lot, would be very beneficial to preventing that from happening.
Okay.
But stretching, maintaining good foot health in that way is a good way to do it.
I go to yoga. It's been helpful.
Yeah.
I also have a theory, and I can't say that I came up with this theory. My friend who's older than me, her name's Jen, and she told me, she's like, every single woman I meet who is just entering into menopause seems to get plantar fasciitis. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not aware of any connection with that, but...
Did I give you a new research topic?
It might be a good topic to research, yes. And a lot of people will be interested in it for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some specific stretches you can do for it?
Well, I think of your calf muscle, which forms your Achilles, as connecting to your plantar fascia.
Okay.
So, and then your plantar fascia is obviously part of the problem too. So really any stretching should really focus on those two things, stretching the calf muscle, the Achilles, and stretching your plantar fascia.
Like a lunge or something?
Almost think of like a runner's stretch.
Okay.
Where you're standing maybe up against a wall or a counter and you put your foot back and kind of feel that calf stretching.
Yeah.
Holding that stretch. That's a very important stretch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever done any needling, dry needling or acupuncture? Is that helpful?
I think those things can be helpful too. People find them helpful. Why they're helpful?
I was about to say, do you think it's in their head?
There could be a little bit of that placebo effect, I suppose, but enough people find it helpful that there must be something to it. I suppose with dry needling or acupuncture in that area, you could imagine how that could maybe bring more blood flow into the area, which is one of the things that's necessary to get this to heal.
And there's also laser treatments. Is that along the same lines?
Along the same lines, yes.
I see. Okay. Yeah. How long should I be dealing with this pain? Because I'll tell you myself, when I got it, I've had it twice now, which stands to reason, what you just said. And both times it's finally starting to go away this time, and it's been a year. And I've thrown so much money at this.
Right.
I have gone to Rolfing, which do you even know what that is?
I do.
Yeah, well, for those who don't, it's when you deal with it's like massaging the fascia itself. It's fascia manipulation. It is not pleasant.
No.
So I got that done. I've had massage done. I've bought $1,500 insoles. None of it has helped. So at what point do I just go and see a podiatrist, which I have not done yet, and you would think I would have by now, but I have not?
I think anytime your foot is hurting you for an extended period of time, what extended is hard to say, but I mean, if it's debilitating pain where you have pain day in and day out for even several days, I think it's probably worth having it checked out.
Okay. And you can't do anything for it, though?
Time is something you can't do anything about for sure.
I know.
But things that expedite getting it better faster are things like stretching. Sometimes we actually do injections, like steroid injections around the plantar fascia, and that can help to expedite the recovery as well.
But I've heard that those steroid shots can actually damage the fascia.
It's possible. A certain percentage of people will have a rupture of their plantar fascia, and I don't know that's the worst thing not that you should be trying to rupture your plantar fascia, but it's not necessarily the worst thing if it does rupture, because that typically then brings in more blood flow and kind of lengthens the plantar fascia, I suppose, just a little bit, and allows it to then heal.
Kind of releases the net. It releases,
right.
like the rubber band effect.
It almost does, if we do surgery for plantar fasciitis, that's typically what we do, is we actually surgically, and specifically and precisely release a part of the plantar fascia.
And wow, and when do you get to that point?
Maybe if you've been working on all these things for 9 to 12 months and it's not getting better and it's debilitating pain.
Okay. It's not debilitating. It's annoying.
Yeah.
And it's getting better. Thank God. But it's been a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to different foot stuff. We have bone spurs. Can bone spurs come because of plantar fasciitis, and how does one form?
Bone spurs form, a variety of reasons. I mean, sometimes there's been a trauma where you have a fracture and you have a bone spur because of that. Oftentimes people just form spurs as part of living. The tendons pull on the bone, and when they pull on the bone responds by forming a spur. So spurs around your heel, like on the bottom of your heel, are not actually found to be responsible for plantar fasciitis. They're just there.
I see.
A lot of times we get x-rays on these people and they just happen to have a bone spur. It's just there anyway.
Is it like a flying buttress then to a church, like it's supportive?
That's right. Yeah, I guess in a way it's kind of like that. That's a good way to think of it.
And can you use KT tape at all? Explain what KT tape is, and
you can use.
Can you use masking tape in its place?
I don't think you can use masking tape in its place, but KT tape kind of, I suppose, attaches to these. Probably a therapist would know and be able to put this a lot better than I could, but you put KT tape on these areas where there's maybe a ligament attachment or a tendon attachment. It maybe reduces the tension on that area. It kind of just changes the distribution a little bit.
So it takes on some of the
force, I guess, shares some of the load there. Maybe in this situation, maybe separates the fascia a little bit from the underlying structure or overlying structure to maybe release some tension.
Yeah, but you haven't ever used it before.
I never use it, but but that's because I typically send someone to a physical therapist, and then they would kind of institute that type of treatment. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Let's talk about the best named word ever, bunions. Let's talk about bunions. How does a bunion form? What is it?
Yeah, so technically a bunion is just a bump.
Okay.
So when people think of bunions, they always think of a bump near their big toe. The big toe rests on top of something called your first metatarsal. So the bunion itself, typically in the situation where you think of a bump near your big toe, is the first metatarsal head. And the first metatarsal head is jutting out along the side of your foot. And your big toe, which we call the hallux. The hallux is angled.
Hallux?
The hallux.
And you said it's angered?
Well, it's angled.
Oh,
the hallux is angled.
It's like, don't anger the hallux.
Well, it is probably angered too. The bunion is definitely something that gets angry. But the hallux, the big toe, is angled towards your second toe, which kind of uncovers the first metatarsal head, which makes that more prominent, and then you have a bunion.
I see. And are they hereditary?
Partially hereditary, partially based on shoe wear choices, things of that nature.
Right. And we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
So can you get bunions elsewhere?
Yeah, anywhere where there's a bump. Sometimes people have something called a bunionette.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Which is the same thing on your small toe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you get one on your hips or your arms or your
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, we don't really call them a bunion in those locations,
but
I
can
guess.
Form?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere there's a prominence, it can form, and then you get rubbing or irritation from something. So you can imagine the foot. That's why it's
because you're constantly moving it.
That's right.
And how about orthotics? Because like I said, I spent $1,500 on orthotics because I was desperate. This was early on. I was like, I'm just gonna cut this off at the pass. Did nothing.
Yeah.
So is it worth it to spend $1,500 on orthotics, or can I just go to the store and get Dr. Scholl's?
I would always start by going to the store and getting an off-the-shelf insert first because it's much cheaper. You spend maybe $40 or $50 for a good off-the-shelf insert versus, like you said,
$1,500. It was awful.
$1,000 to $1,500 for an orthotic, which insurance oftentimes won't pay for.
Oh, it definitely didn't cover it.
So, but desperate times, I guess.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll get them, but I would, usually start with just an off-the-shelf insert.
Okay.
The reason for them and the reason why they might help is maybe if you have some foot alignment issue that's, it needs to be customized perhaps, and that's why you might have a custom orthotic. But otherwise, you're just looking for some support. So even a shoe that's maybe not supportive, you put an insert in there, it makes it more supportive.
Right.
And if you're having a foot problem, that support might be something that helps.
Is it, and like people with high arches, it makes sense to me why they would need an insert because like you've got to support that arch.
Right.
What about somebody with flat feet?
Someone with flat feet is, I think a lot of people have flat feet, and it kind of is a spectrum. Sometimes you see really flat feet, and sometimes it's just a little bit of a flat foot. If they're having problems with their flat foot, then it can be helpful to give them more support. Usually the problems they have is because that foot is so flat, the arch is collapsing, and needs something to kind of lift that arch up a little bit.
What causes flat feet? Are you just born with it, or do you develop it?
Yes and yes. It's kind of like plantar fasciitis or bunions or whatever. I mean, sometimes we don't know the reason for it. Oftentimes there's some hereditary component to it. Sometimes a lot of people are just born with a flat foot and they have it on both sides, but sometimes they only have it on one side and not the other. That's
one
usually,
foot, not the other?
That's
or
right.
one? Wow.
And that's usually, it can be an injury, but oftentimes it's just part of maybe aging parts.
I see.
Something wears out a little bit.
We're like old cars in the end, aren't we?
Yes. Yes. And it's never the same.
I know.
Yeah.
It's got to take a toll. Like when something like that happens, like I used to teach yoga, and in my, not my teachings, but what I was taught was that the big toe plays a huge role in how your skeleton works. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of the, pressure through the, at least front part of your foot, through the what we call the forefoot, goes through as much as 50% through your big toe, and the other 50% is maybe distributed through the remaining toes of your foot.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very important, and you lose that arch, your foot flattens out, pressure distribution is different, it starts to affect all the other joints.
Like your knees and your hips and your back, it's all connected.
That's right.
Oh my God. Okay. And real quick, foot cramps. When I was pregnant, I got foot cramps a lot. And sometimes I'm a swimmer, and sometimes when I'm swimming, I'm getting them. What's going on with a foot cramp? What causes them, and how can you get, rid of them?
Yeah, that's maybe $1 million question, because sometimes there's not really an obvious answer. Sometimes there's things that, you can correct, like electrolyte abnormalities. Maybe people just aren't drinking enough water or something like that.
As I drink coffee.
As you drink coffee, right? Yeah. Right. But I mean, sometimes it's inappropriate, not appropriate shoe wear. Maybe you're kind of gripping the shoe more or holding your foot differently, and that can lead to some cramping because of a muscle imbalance.
Yeah.
Sometimes with things like pregnancy, you have hormonal changes, so that can affect, how ligaments, how tight they are, and maybe those stretch out a little bit.
Which leads me back to the menopause and plantar fasciitis question.
It could be part of that whole thing, right? And then maybe your muscles are working a little bit overtime to, account for that change in the balance.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. All right, couple more questions before we get to this plethora of footwear we have here. One, why do my feet go numb when I work out sometimes?
That's another thing that people oftentimes wonder, and I think it's probably you get a little bit of swelling in your foot, and then your shoe becomes relatively tight, and those surface nerves then start to see a little more pressure, and leads to some numbness because those nerves are
nothing
being
to worry
squeezed.
about though.
typically nothing to worry about. I mean, if you ever have numbness that's consistent and doesn't go away, that can be worrisome.
That's when we need to come see you.
That's when you need to come see somebody. Yes.
Okay. All right. Actually, let's just jump into these shoes. So we have, I don't know, 10 shoes in front, 15 shoes in front of us, because shoes are just so varied. And so I'm going to hold up a shoe. Okay. And some of these you brought, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing these are your wife's shoes.
Courtesy of my wife.
Yeah, I was about to say, because
right.
I don't see you wearing a platform sandal.
No.
Although, no judgment. You might look great in them.
Right.
So let's hold up this first one. These are just classic Hoka, which is real popular right now, running shoes.
Yeah. So that's kind of I would say that's a good shoe, right? I mean, you can't wear a shoe like that every day, all day. There's certain occasions don't call for that shoe.
Not going to a ball in these.
Right. No, probably not. Not the statement you want to make.
Yeah.
It's a good shoe, you know. I mean, you can lace up that shoe. It grabs your heel. There's clearly good support. It's not, a flimsy sole on that shoe. It's got good cushioning, good arch support, and the sole is solid. You can loosen the laces to accommodate for
swelling
or foot size and that type of thing.
So because I find this to be true just feeling it, and I'm just curious if you can validate it. Whenever you have a tied shoe versus a slip-on shoe, is it more supportive to your arch?
It's more supportive to, not necessarily to your arch, but you can imagine if you have a slip-on shoe, right? Or
like the van that's in front of you.
Yeah. So.
I didn't see it had laces. Well,
yeah, this one has laces.
Vans can come just slip on.
Yeah, imagine this shoe, like this sandal. Right, there's no laces. You just slide your foot into the shoe, which is fine. I mean, it's pretty good supportive shoe. But imagine if you're doing a lot of walking with this shoe.
Yeah.
Your heel's lifting out of it. Your foot wants to come out of the shoe, so you're having to use your toes and the muscles in your foot to constantly grip, which can maybe theoretically be problematic if you're doing that all the time. Whereas you have a laced up shoe or a shoe that grabs your heel, then you're not using those foot muscles in an abnormal way the whole time.
Interesting. Okay. Now we have this shoe that I would like to steal. It is a clog sandal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this guy.
Yeah. So there's some bad things about it, right? It's a heel, which means that it's pushing more pressure onto the front of your foot, which is not normal to have all that pressure kind of underneath what we call the metatarsal heads, kind of near the base of your toes. That can lead to pain in that area if you're wearing that for a long period of time. But that's a shoe that has a strap around the heel, so it grabs your heel. So maybe you don't have to work as much with your toes to be gripping things. It's not a high heel like a stiletto. It's a little bit of a heel, but it's a broader based heel, which gives you more stability to your foot, to your ankle.
What do you say to people when they say, "Oh my God, these heels are so comfortable"? Every time I hear someone say that, I roll my eyes and say, "You're lying to me."
Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be true.
Yeah, but some women swear like these are the most. I can wear these all day.
Yeah, well.
Maybe you need to wear some high heels to learn about your patients.
Maybe I need to try. I think it looks pretty uncomfortable to me. They may have just a really high pain threshold. That might be the situation.
Well, we are women. That is our thing.
Right, yeah.
Okay, how about this beautiful ballet flat? Very in season, by the way.
Yeah. So, again, it's a flat shoe and it's fairly flimsy, right? There's a lot of flexibility to that, I'm sure, right? So that's not so good if you're doing a lot of walking. Surely it looks nice. I don't think your foot is crammed into it quite as much, but there's no support underneath your arch.
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry.
Again, you're asking all those muscles to do a lot of work, and you're not supporting your plantar fascia.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about me. I have a wide foot, and this looks really narrow to me. What if I did try to cram my very sturdy foot into this tiny little shoe?
Maybe for an hour or two, it won't be so bad. But if you're doing that all day long, consistently, day after day, then your toes are being pushed together. Ligaments are starting to stretch out. You start to get an imbalance. That's when you might start to see this hallux valgus or bunion forming.
The angry hallux.
Angry hallux. You're right. Right. Yep.
Okay. We've got the Croc, very, very, very popular. Everyone loves these, and they even make platform ones. I feel like you have feelings towards this.
Well, I don't think they're the worst shoe,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I find that maybe I have a lot of grip on them. Okay. So, I just think of kids that are wearing them, running around and things, and all of a sudden they're tripping and falling and breaking parts.
There's that.
But it's better than walking. Maybe in a flip-flop. I mean, it's a shoe that you can easily put on. It has some support to it. Protects your foot a little bit. So I think it's maybe good for just sliding on and walking around in the house.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you're not more angry at some of these shoes. Okay, so we have a cleat here. And this is my son's cleat. And my son I'm noticing rolling his foot in. And I've noticed with all the sports shoes for kids, there's zero arch support in there.
No support. And that's the problem with those shoes.
Yeah, why is that? You would think that they would know that you need that if you're running at an athletic pace.
You would think so. I'm not really sure why that is. And if you want to try to, most shoes you can make more supportive by putting an insert in the shoe.
Sure.
But these athletic shoes are so tight, there's not really room to put anything inside of that shoe other than your foot.
Yeah, so you have to go up a size?
You have to go up a size to make that work.
Yeah. But other than that, is there any issue with the cleat?
Not really. I mean, I think that's it. It's primarily the lack of support.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think our producer, Anita, brought in an Allbird. Very popular, super trendy. Any issues?
Not really. I mean, there's typically not a lot of support inside of that shoe it's a nice thick sole. It's a cushioned sole. It grabs your heel. It has laces on there, but there's probably not a lot of arch support inside of there, and you could optimize on that a little bit better. But then again, just an off-the-shelf insert can make any shoe more supportive.
Okay, I'm going to hit 2 more shoes. We're not going to hit all 15 of these because it's just too long.
A lot of them.
Yeah, because I keep hearing the same things. You're looking for cushion, which I'm assuming is for shock absorption.
That's right.
What happens if I don't have enough cushion in my heel?
You'll probably start, if you stand a lot, then you'll probably start to have plantar fasciitis issues.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And your back, I used to wait tables and ran restaurants for a really long time, and my back would hurt. It was one of the signals I knew I needed to get new shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you from what I gathered, was that all the shock went into my back.
Right. Well, and probably also affects your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, everything up the line.
Yeah. I've got a Birkenstock.
Yeah, I think a Birkenstock is a great shoe. Again, if you're wearing it in the right situation, it's better than your standard kind of flat or a flip-flop without any support. The nice thing about the Birkenstock is that it has a little bit of a more rigid sole to it, right? It's not bending a lot. It also has good support underneath the arch.
I love Birkenstocks. Yeah. I'm so glad they're in style. And I guess the last 2 we'll do are, first of all, the flip-flop, which I know is a podiatrist's enemy.
Yeah, I think, again, a flip-flop is okay to wear in the right situation. It's probably not a good idea to wear it if you're out mowing the yard.
It's fine, yeah.
At the beach, it's fine if you're just walking a short distance or maybe just walking around the house. So if you have something like plantar fasciitis, right, you might want to not walk barefoot around the house, especially if you have hard surfaces.
Because it hurts.
It hurts. So having some sort of cushioning there is important. If you're just walking around the house, you're not doing a lot of probably gripping with your toes to keep the shoe on.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would probably be a flip-flop that has some arch support to kind of support your arch.
When I hiked the Grand Canyon when I was 20, I'll never forget this. This guy walked down the canyon wall next to me. Homeboy was wearing a flip-flop. And I was like, what? I was dying of sweat. I had hiking boots on. I'll never forget it. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he never came out. And lastly, we have this super fashionable Steve Madden, super sparkly stiletto. Anything you want to say about this sparkly shoe?
Probably the only thing that could be worse is if you had a narrow toe box where your toes weren't free and it was really just pushing everything together as well.
Yeah.
But, that shoe is bad on numerous counts, I suppose. One is the very high heel, right? So it throws everything down, all the pressure down to the front of your foot.
Yeah.
Because it has a really narrow heel. It also probably would not be good for stability of your ankle. A lot of people twist their ankle, break their ankle, if they step wrong with those types of things. There's not any real support underneath there at all. I think wearing it for an hour or 2 is probably okay.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, now that I'm looking down the table, there is one because it's super popular. I have a Tiva, but you brought in a Chaco.
Yeah.
So talk about those. Will you lift that up so the camera can see it?
Yes, I think in some ways it's like I don't know if a glorified flip-flop is the right word, but they have some good features, right? There's a more solid sole. There's a good cushioning to it. There's good arch support here, and it grabs your heel with this strap.
Those are all the good things.
Those are all the good things. Yeah. I think the worst thing about this would just be that your toes are exposed, right? So if you're mowing the yard, you probably wouldn't want to wear this.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking like hurting your foot itself as opposed to injuring it.
Yeah. So I think day to day, I think this would be a great shoe to wear.
Okay, so Chacos get a 95%. Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Yes.
Two hallexes up.
2 hallexes up. Right. Yes.
All right. Well, I think this has been super informative. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm definitely going to look at shoes a little differently now.
Yeah. Good. I hope you learned something.
I did, and it's also good to know that it's not my fault that I have plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, and I hope your plantar fasciitis will eventually.
That's what they keep
go
saying.
Away.
We'll see.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thanks. So that's a lot of food for thought when you're going shoe shopping next time. And Dr. Thompson also said that you know it's time to change your shoes when you see the tread is worn out. There might be some holes forming. If you got to get duct tape, it's time to get new shoes. Basically, at about a year's time, if you wear them regularly, your shoe isn't going to support you anymore. So that's a good time to get new shoes. So food for thought. If you have any questions for me about this topic or any of our topics, you can find us at WRALFM.com/Sarah Has Questions, or find us on social at WRALFM social pages. And if you have questions for Dr. Thompson, you can find him and all the amazing doctors at WakeMed at wakemed.org. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.